All right, welcome to He Believes, She Feels, episode 5 with Melanie here, owner of Awakening Sanctuary, psychic, medium, and spiritual teacher. How are you, Melanie?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, as we know, with this energy in the eclipse here today.
Yeah, it's a little feisty to say the least.
Well, I'm glad you came on. Tell a little bit of the audience about what you do, how your spiritual journey, and what you're currently doing right now.
Yeah, I think it all started when I was born, which is usually how people approach me. They're like, "Hello, it's nice to meet you." It all started when I was born. And I'm like, "Great, here we go." Um, I was very sensitive to energy. I noticed a lot of things that other people didn't, and I just didn't understand why I was experiencing the world in the way that I was. It seemed like I was communicating with and noticing, energy and spirit from a very young age. And I just had no context for what that was. So a lot of my life was spent trying to find the answers as to why I was the way I was. And I kind of found myself on the path of energy work and intuitive development. I started working for a psychic school couple of years back, and I left that school and started my own practice. And I've been working with people around the world, helping them to learn how to develop their psychic abilities, their intuitive gifts, their ability to heal themselves and others, which is really what I'm passionate about. So I own a psychic development academy, Awakening Sanctuary. I also run a beginner psychic development class, which is open for everybody. And it's a really fun space to begin to explore those different abilities.
That's interesting because you are a truth seeker. I know that for a fact. So you started at a young age asking these deep questions, emotional questions. Some of the things that you teach in your class, what are some of those things? How to, like if somebody's like just recently waking up or going through this whole spiritual awakening.
Yeah. So I think the basis for a lot of the things that I create have to do with what my lived experience was as somebody who noticed energy and spirit, and really curating classes for people that want to learn how to navigate the world as somebody who sees, feels, notices, hears all of the different things that most people maybe don't, or maybe they're not admitting that they do. So, a lot of what I teach is how to really own your energetic space, how to separate from other people's emotions, how to not take on stuff from the world, how to find your own answers. And I think a really fun way to do that is to kind of go into different topics. So, we go into manifestation. We go into, right now, we're doing a series on plant communication and animal communication, love and relationships, career and finances, manifesting money, how to access all of your chakras and heal your chakra system. So, really, just a whole range of different topics that we explore. Um, One of them that I did that was really fun was the pillars of happiness. So, really understanding the energetic dynamics of what makes somebody happy and how to find and fulfill those core parts of yourself. I think our society is just in this space where we've been so disconnected from our authentic awareness of what's for us that sometimes people feel really lost in trying to find that answer. Um, so, for that reason, it's really kind of the core of what I do. A lot of that work has to do with going within. And, sometimes people use meditation or energy work as a practice to relax. That can be a part of what I teach, but mostly what I teach is really deep inner transformation. So we're going in and we're looking at where are your limits, where are those self made beliefs that keep you from really accessing those gifts or finding those answers, getting that clarity, taking that step, manifesting that big thing, because that energy really creates your reality. So that's a lot of what we do in that space.
I mean, thanks for sharing that. I mean, how does one look within? Like, let's talk about that because I know me and you both operate equivalently the same way, and we don't go by fear. We just jump right in and we ask these questions and we work through everything. But somebody who's struggling to go within, like, what kind of like ideas or what kind of like little tricks do you do to help that?
Yeah, so I think the number one tool that I use with people is amusement. And if you have some level of lightness that you can anchor into, it doesn't matter where you go or what you explore within yourself. what you're looking at, what you're unpacking, what you're looking to heal or move past. If you have that level of amusement while you're venturing into that space, things begin to move and shift. And that fear and resistance to whatever it is, and a lot of times when we're going within, we're looking at the energy. So we're looking at that energy in a meditative space and developing the ability to see just that energy at its core, not so much trying to figure it out or solve it or get to the bottom of it, but just really in recognizing it with that level of amusement, it helps it to unsolidify and begin to really shift. And I don't think that people really recognize that we will do anything as human beings to avoid looking at those things because they're painful, they're uncomfortable, they're stuck, and we hate it and we'd rather do anything else. And on the other side of that discomfort, where you're just simply recognizing that energy, there's so much growth to be had. Your answers are there, your clarity, your certainty, your true joy lives on the other side of what you're really avoiding. And it's just funny because that's kind of the way of the Scorpio, right?
It is, and it's funny you say that. Like I will do things that I don't even know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm following my intuition. So, like example, like I get my grandparents' picture, and I think about the inner child and how happy it was, and then I use that energy, and then I funnel it up to working on my on the shadow work, the things that I'm working through. So kind of like the same way that you're talking about now. So it's like so it becomes a little lighter. It dilutes the whole like this is so big and pressuring to uncover myself, right?
Right. And it's just that level of, you've got that energy that's stuck that to me really becomes condensed and solidified. We're resisting it, we're avoiding it, it's bad, we hate it, it's uncomfortable, it's the thing we want to get rid of. This is something we're trying to fix. So now it's stuck, right? But when you just observe it as an energy and not as a problem with that amusement, and you go, oh, when I look at that, I see a blob that's kind of purple that represents that stuck pain. Wow, that that's a lot of stuck pain. Whoa, look at all that stuff I've been holding on to. Then it starts to kind of just be able to release because you're acknowledging it. It's no longer in the shadow. It's no
Yeah.
longer that thing that you're avoiding and calling bad and shaming. And you have that level of lightness that you're anchoring into where you're going, oh, okay, I'm going to look at this and I'm going to giggle a little bit about how intense this is. And it just releases.
Yeah, like looking at it from a third person perspective, right? Like it's not your own and just look, and you're like, oh, this is actually not as bad or whatever it might be like you're like you saw like the little blurb of like something there.
Mhm.
Yeah. What are some of those energies you're currently working through?
Yeah, for me, I think that this eclipse season has really brought up a lot around personal growth. I think that sometimes when you're in the world of personal development and personal growth, you move through so much old information, and maybe there's pieces of your identity that start to really fall away. And sometimes that happens so fast that you can find yourself in places, in situations relating to people, having, close knit support groups that just don't really align with who you are anymore. And I think that's been a really challenging thing for me because seeing and finding myself being in a space where the place that I found the most comfort and where I was able to grow, that I've outgrown it in some ways is so uncomfortable because you're in that space where it's not in alignment anymore, but you're not yet in the next step. So you're just in that discomfort right in the middle where as for me, being psychic, this is frustrating because I always can see and sense what's coming, but I'm not yet physically there. So I'm experiencing that thing that's coming up, but my body's right here. And there's this tension and discomfort right in the middle. And that's that growing pain energy that we go through oftentimes.
And how do you deal with that energy? Like, let's talk
Oh,
about that. Like in that discomfort, because I'm going through it. I've gone through it. We're all going through it, and it's not the best energy to be in. But
yeah. Um, a lot of the work that I do that's personally for myself is what I teach. So every day I get up, I take care of my body first and foremost. We can't forget the body, even though we're spiritual. We have a body. The body is the package deal with the spirit. We have to take care of the body. So all this the body isn't real stuff frustrates me. Your body is real.
Yeah.
Secondarily, I take care of my body and then I sit down and I meditate and I do some energy work for myself. So I set my energetic space for the day. I clean out all the stuff from my night. I look at my day as an energy. I kind of set up the space for it to go smoothly. And then I look at what's coming up for me and I start to kind of get a read on, okay, I'm in the midst of this growth. I've released this part of my identity. I'm frustrated with this step. I'm having this difficulty in setting a boundary in this relationship. I kind of look at all of those things and process, like really sit there and allow myself to process those things. And then, throughout the day, I'm working with clients and students. I do admin stuff for the school. I post online all the time. And in between those different things, I really create space for myself to just be able to be where I am. I don't think that a lot of us stop to really check in with ourselves throughout the day. So if I'm in the middle of something and I'm, work mode, and I'm also in a really big growth step, I'm work mode over here. And then I have this hour or so where I'm taking lunch, I'm walking my dog, and I am processing emotionally, energetically, whatever it is. I'm looking at it, I'm working it, I'm feeling it. Sometimes it's intense, sometimes it's great, but, right now it's a little spicy.
Yeah, that's an understatement. It's funny you say that because yeah, the other day I was walking and I literally just started tearing out of nowhere because I was
Mhm.
processing things. Like I know we talked a little bit before. I'd never had a father wound. I thought I never had a father wound. And apparently I did. Apparently it's there and I just brush it under the carpet. And now Spirit was telling me to work through this and go through that. And I find that really interesting when we process things and we allow ourselves to be in the present moment. Those start to surface up and then you really it's your time to shine, right?
Yeah, exactly. And through that processing, what you're doing is you're releasing that energy that no longer serves you. So maybe it's the pain that you held from having that experience with a parent, or maybe it's an old identity that you're releasing, or some sort of limit, let's say, that got created because of that experience. So you're
Yeah.
moving that old energy out of your field. A lot of times there is an emotional release. That emotion is energy in motion. I know it sounds tacky, but it literally moves energy out of your field. On the other side of that, you're able to bring in your information. So that's your present time information, your next step, your life force energy, that creative energy that allows you to do things in the world. So I really see it like this motion of this denser stuff that's no longer serving you in alignment that moves out, and all this other new information and energy that comes in.
I mean, it's literally like a computer, right? You're rewriting in your hard drive. You're
It is.
deleting space, and then you're rewriting your new software. Because I had flashbacks of like I never had a father figure to show me how to be a man. My mother always chased men. Like all these men situations kept coming up to me, and I was like, all right, limiting belief, limiting belief, limiting belief. What do you do now? How do you get there? And like you said, exactly that, rewriting your hard drive and rewriting in your story.
But if you don't become aware of those limiting beliefs, then that rules all of the rest of your life, and you don't know that you're functioning through that programming, right? So let's say that your limiting belief says you have to make a ton of money and provide in order to be somebody that is loved as a man, somebody who's in a male body, right? You have to be this provider, you have to have a lot of resources. That's that top echelon thing right there. And so all that you start experiencing is all of this invalidation in the world when you don't have resources, when you don't have a sense of where you're going next with your job, or you don't have this sense of somebody to provide for. Now everything's all of this deep invalidation because you're functioning from this old idea. Well, maybe if you move that invalidation out of the way and that limit out of the way, you can start to relate to people in an authentic way. You can start to have relationships that are non-transactional. You can start to value your growth steps, and you can have the space to be able to go from job to job or to have your bank account go up and down without it being a direct reflection on your value. And that's huge. That's a huge core wound in our society. And there's so much pressure to be that. And is it something that people need to be torturing themselves about?
I
Probably
mean,
not as
I
much.
feel I feel like you just triggered exactly what's happening in my life. To be fully transparent, and as you're talking, I was thinking about it. I was like, it's exactly it. Like my core beliefs is like, you have to make this certain amount of money, you have to do all these things, and I'm working on it as like the my 3D world is collapsing, and like that side, but I'm working on to keeping a balance, and that doesn't connect my self-worth, doesn't connect who I am, and it's about the journey, and it's all about this, and it's exactly what I'm trying to unwind and untwine from this 30 years of corporate world and society growing. It's not easy. It could be daunting.
Yeah. And that's really that core programming that we come into the world in. Our society is agreeing that that is the role of somebody born in a male body. So you're force fed that lie throughout your whole life that that's where your value is. That's where people will meet you. That's how you find your sense of purpose. And when you move that out of the way, there's room for you to find your own information, to take your next step, and to find the clarity on how you do find your success in the world without feeling like you're pressured into some high paying role that's life sucking, you know?
There's also the part that struggles with like how do you maintain like your bills and things and follow your passion and align yourself to your greatest strength. And I know you take some risks and you've taken some risks starting your academy and the teaching and everything that you do. So how does one balance that? How does one go around that?
Yeah, I think that when you are on the right path, you know it because you're just obsessed. Just obsessed with that
Yeah.
one thing. And that thing that you want to build and create brings you so much joy. There's this big vision for it. There's a lot of excitement. And it doesn't matter how many roadblocks you hit in that, you just keep wanting to move towards that. That's how you know. There's going to be resistance along the way because it's not about the end goal. It's about all of the things you're learning to be able to get to that place. So, people see my business and they're like, wow, you know, you have this academy, you have, well, maybe 50 plus students, you have regular clients that you work with, you've worked with people around the world. You know, how did you do that? Did you just get handed it? No, I struggled. I fought and I struggled and I cried and I, had a part-time job where I was bartending and I absolutely hated my job, but I forced myself to go to kind of have that money to put towards the things that I wanted to create, and I started off small. And the thing is, I didn't have the support of anybody else who was saying, oh, here, let me give you a big chunk of money to make that happen. Or I didn't have anybody say, oh, you need a website. Let me show you how to do that. I wanted to do it and I figured out how to do it. So it was this level of determination where no matter what was going on, I just kept moving towards it. And I just kept having a total meltdown and then starting over every time it didn't work. And all you have to do in that process is try things and see what works. It's not about trying something, it not working, and then going, oh, this is a failure, I quit. It's about going, oh, that didn't work. What's next? What else can I try?
Yeah, you have that which I'm very familiar with, is that tenacity. You can become obsessed about something if you truly want it and you truly want it. I know your style, and you would just keep going. You'll cry it out for like a good period of time and alchemize that energy, but then you're like, okay, what's next? It's interesting you say that because that's what I'm having a hard time issue with. Like this spiritual side is aligning to me perfectly, but then the past self version of like the financial world, I have to struggle and I have to force myself to do something just to make a buck. But at the same time, it's not aligning myself. And the spirit's like, no, 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 no. Trust in the process. Keep going, keep going. So it's not easy. It's not.
Yeah, it is really tough to be stuck in that space, especially when you're kind of in the beginning steps and phases of building out what you want to create. And it is disheartening because you know at a core level, at a body level, that this is not where you want to be. And that discomfort is so important because at some point, you're going to be met with that choice of, okay, I have enough of this foundation laid to really bet on myself. Do I take that step or do I stay with what's comfortable? And that discomfort is what pushes your butt out of that space.
Yeah. I
It's that
mean,
thing that goes, if I do one more day, I will implode because I hate this so much. It is so uncomfortable.
you're right. The only reason we're having this podcast and we're talking about this is because I got so uncomfortable and I did not want to do and I was like, what else can I do? What else can I that aligns to myself? And here we are talking about this. And it is discomfort is the key, isn't it?
It is. It's really your spirit's way of kind of guiding you in the direction of, hey, are you listening? This is not it. This is all of the signals that I can give you that this is not where you're supposed to be. And I'll tell you, when I started the academy 2 years ago, I had put together a big chunk of money that I was like, all right, I know I can get this up and running in this many months. I have a business partner who has severe ADHD. It took both of us a lot longer to nail it down and to launch than I had expected. And by the time I left meeting with her in person and went back home to start in the process of enrolling students, I had $300 in my bank account. My rent is not $300 a month. So the panic was setting in. And I just kept getting that reassurance that everything was going to be fine. And I'm like, I'm either out of my mind because I've never been in this place. I am not irresponsible like that. I'm either out of my mind, which we're about to find out, or this is going to work. And it just worked. And past that, my Instagram blew up. And I was like, all right, now we're cooking.
Like, honestly, I feel like I'm in that exact chapter. I know I've been saying this throughout this whole podcast, but it's interesting because you have to give it so much. Like, you have to trust the process and just, it is. Yesterday I woke up and I'm like, am I crazy? Or like, is this the part? Like, is this the part? And then things started happening, and I'm just like, because it's scary. That's why people don't do this, right? That's why people are scared to start this journey. And I'm sure you get that
Terrifying.
with a lot of your clients in the beginning.
It is terrifying. It is jumping out of an airplane and building the parachute on the way down.
I,
And
yeah.
if you don't have the certainty within yourself to know that you can bet on you, or that you have that little nest egg that makes you feel like it's okay and it's safe to do it, because let's be honest, there's rational and reasonable things to do in our world where we have bills and rent and need to afford food. There's core bodily needs we need to meet. So we can't completely disregard that. But at the same time, you need to be able to start to put your energy into what you want to create. So it's this delicate balance of, how much can I really rest on this fear mentality of, is this going to work? I don't know if it's going to work. What am I going to do? I mean, worst case scenario, have something that you can fall back on, but at the same time, move in the direction that you're wanting to move in, even if it's little steps, even if it's, I'm reducing my hours over here and continuing to build this over here, or I'm putting together this amount of money and then I'm going to take a break. And if something happens, I'll get a job over here, and you just have that, balance there between the two.
I give you credit. I know the first time we talked about it, I was like, who did your website? And you're like, me. And I was like, oh, oh.
Did it come
I,
through like that?
yeah. I was like, oh. I felt like it was a professionally done with like, I was like, well, I should just hire you to do my website too, because like it was beautiful. It's beautiful. Like
Yeah.
you must have taken so much energy and effort to do these things.
I had a really clear vision of what I wanted, and I hired people to help me in the very beginning. And every time I hired somebody, they would take my money and they would not do what I asked them to do. I paid 4 different people to build websites that did not build usable websites. I paid a virtual assistant a couple $1,000s who did not assist with anything. Um, and it became this almost hilarious, laughable thing. I was like, all right, I'm clearly in the energy of, I do have to do everything on my own. So I'm going to do it all on my own. And then once I clear through that limiting belief, I'm going to start hiring.
Yeah. Our creativity is amazing when you use it for the right direction. I think that's life. Life called me to separate any short-term dopamines and attachments to things and use all of that energy because we are Scorpios at the end of the day and push that towards all my creativity channels. And it's amazing how much we're capable of to do, honestly. Like I've seen your stuff here and you could talk more about that. And it's just more of like, oh, I can, instead of saying I can do that, I'm like, no, I can do that.
Yeah. And even if you don't know how, it just takes a little bit of willingness to learn. There's different types of places that you can get all sorts of information. We have the internet nowadays. There's nothing that you can't learn how to do, even if you're unsure or you doubt yourself or you don't think you're smart enough to figure it out. I didn't think that I was going to be able to learn how to build a website. Built a website. I didn't know that I'd know how to figure out how to keep all my finances in order and keep track of everything. Learned how to do that. Didn't know if I could get the scheduling out in the right way where I wasn't having to email people. And what about time zones? And what if I forget? And what if I lose track of time and I'm seen as somebody who's unprofessional because I'm not showing up for my appointments? Figured that out. It was fine. But there's all these worries as an entrepreneur that you hit that you grow through. And it just becomes that, next step that you're taking in the business. And it reaffirms the certainty that you hold in yourself and the validation that you can create for yourself in that space.
How do you balance, because you're very in your masculine when you do that. How do you balance masculine and feminine energy? Like that to me stands out more because I know we can be an extreme side. So how do you balance that?
When I am not doing admin or taking action or in a space where I'm creating in that way, I more so lean into um, really kind of turning off my analytical brain and just being. And I think a lot of that balance in being is really where I find that rest for myself because after I'm laser focused in things I'm trying to get done, I just want my brain to be mush. I'm like, all right, turn everything off. Just done. Let's go look at I actually, I have a lot of house plants. So I take care of a lot of house plants.
I was
I
just
talk to
picturing
my
that right now.
house plants. I play with my house plants. I repot my house plants. It's one of the ways that I kind of refocus myself. And, we're all both masculine and feminine energies. And really, that just refers to having a more direct and linear point of view where you're taking action and a more relaxed, receptive energy where you're more playful and open to going with the flow. So there's different ways to really run your energy and they work in tandem with each other. Some people run a little bit more of one, some people run a little bit more of the other, but I tend to honestly communicate in a very masculine way. I'm very direct. That's my trauma. We just put it out there. I need direct communication, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm thinking. I need you to spell it out for me, plain as day. And with everything else, I try to kind of have a little bit of a balance. So.
Let's talk about that trauma.
No.
Uh, because I know the direction is this is going, and I know about how you have to be direct and get the message. But why do you think? Like, let's unwind that. Let's pick on that a little bit.
Hmm. What part?
All of it, but let's start with the why you need it that way, and you've got accustomed to that to the certain extent that you sometimes I can tell you have a hard time balancing if somebody's not that direct with you, right? If they're not there in the way you are. Where did that come from?
So I grew up in a household with a parent who was dysregulated, emotionally just not very kind, mentally not kind. What most people would probably refer to as a narcissist. And growing up in that environment, it was all about twisting my perceived experience of the world to make me responsible for that parent's emotions. So a lot of what I experienced was my reality being denied. Um, I would talk to other adults, and then that parent would come in behind me and tell the adult how I was making things up or I was unwell. So for that reason, I always questioned my reality. And I think that's why I kind of got really deep into um, the exploration of spirit and other people and the self, is that I really wanted to understand the world from this other point of view. I just had the sense that there was more. And in that environment, it was so confusing for me to experience that, to have somebody say one thing but mean the other, or to say something and have a completely different intent and energy behind it, that my love language is direct communication. So when I think something, when I feel something, when I experience something, I just directly communicate it to people. And I think that's a really kind and loving gesture. I do try to gently communicate certain things and not just, go straight in for the kill. There's definitely an art to being a direct communicator, especially with some of the more intense astrological placements.
Yeah,
It's good
yeah.
to be able to have that awareness of how to deliver information. Um, at the same time, damn it. My dog let a bunch of flies in. We were talking about this before we recorded. But I just feel like it's it saves you so much time. It saves you so much pain. There's nothing that gets bottled up. And I also just grew up in that environment where I was suppressed with how I was communicating. My other parent was also, and the things that I was saying were being invalidated. So my voice had been really repressed. So being able to just say, this is what it is, this is how it is, this is how I feel, this is what's going on, this is what I'm thinking, it just creates this movement that's so freeing. Um, I went a little bit of a tangent.
No, that's okay. This is what, like, I'm just thinking about your life. And when was that, like, when you saw that your biggest challenge was your throat chakra and speaking up about your truth? And then you had your parents and you had your life that you're like, what is happening here? Like, everything, that's not what I think. That's not what I'm saying. But when was that, like, change and that trigger for you?
When was it? I'm not 100% sure when, because a lot of what happens when you grow up in an environment where there's intense abuse in any form is that your memory gets all jumbled and kind of foggy. Um, I do remember a very extended period of time being much younger, telling adult figures what was happening in my home and nothing being done about it. And then there was always this weird energy between me and the people that I had reached out to, whether that was a friend's parent or a teacher, a counselor, somebody in a perceived space of authority that I was talking to. Um, there'd be this weird energy there where they just wouldn't listen to what I was saying. So to me, as somebody who was really sensitive, it became this very isolating experience where it was like I was screaming in this room full of people, this is what's happening in my house. Somebody do something about it. And everybody's like, yeah, her parents says she's crazy. It's fine. It's she's making it up.
I can imagine the frustration you went through on that one.
Oh, it was so frustrating. I was depressed and anxious for a very long time. And I've had people say that to me, you appear to be really happy all the time. Have you ever struggled? And I'm like, girl, listen. Majority of my life was major pain and suffering. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. I know what it's like to be in the deepest depths of the worst places. And that is how you find your way into being able to have that full range of experience. If you've gone there where life is not even looking like something you want to do, and you come out of that and you're able to, first of all, be compassionate towards other people and not let it jade you. Second of all, be able and be interested in helping other people to transform out of those different energies. And to really find and align with what brings you joy in the world to where that is not even ever a part of your life anymore, but you can really see it and know how to get people out of it. It's just this beautiful gift.
It is, and I can definitely align with that because I've been doing that lately, and the shadow, like we go through the void, and we think we're in the bottom, but we know for a fact our void has endless capabilities. There's no ending to the void. Like if people think they can reach their bottom, then they're lying to themselves because it goes deeper.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes.
and then to come back out and still be kind and help people regardless of their situation, I mean, that speaks volumes about the work that you've done, right? The work that we've done and everybody is doing in this front run of everything.
Yeah, I think it's really beautiful. And what I do really recognize about myself that's always been there is that from a very young age, I've always just seen people. I never see, you know, who they are trying to appear to be, what ethnicity they are, what religion they are, how they're dressed, what their qualifications are. Those are never the things that I see in a person, first and foremost. I always see the energy of them. And when I was growing up, I just remember this really strange experience of being around people that were hateful or had prejudices or judgments about other people. And here's me, just like this little ball of love for everything. I can't see anybody's darkness. I'm just like, I love everybody and everything. And it was just a very interesting way to experience the world. Um, so, something that I find to be one of the deepest ways to really be able to assist somebody is to just be able to really see them and be with them outside of the story of all of those other things that we think create who we are. Seeing somebody at their core and going, I see that you've been through all of this, but that's not you. That's an experience you had. This is you and your energy right here. And this is what you need to remember. Um, so I think that's one of the coolest parts about this stuff today.
It is, and you reminded me, like I just went on vacation. I went to visit my friends, and he has three boys, and that inner child energy is so pure. Like one cuddled every morning, went to come cuddle with me every morning, and like that makes me think of literally everybody that walks around Earth is has an inner child that somehow got broken or forgot about or what not catered to, and that's what we call our shadows, right? The authentic self that we're unwilling to look at and go through to become that happy inner child again and really cater and align to ourselves.
Absolutely. I really see the shadow parts of the self as the parts of ourselves that we don't know how to love, or the parts of our experience that we don't know how to come to terms with, or we don't know how to validate, or we feel are unworthy. And once we create the space to really be able to just see those for what they were, whether they were difficult learning experience or something you had to grow through in order to grow, um, they become that piece of you that gets integrated. And the self-healing journey is not about becoming perfect. It's about integrating all of the parts of you. And I think that that's something else that's so skewed in the world of spirituality and energy work is that there's this perfect echelon of, oh, I ship rainbows now, but it's not it. I'm always happy and whatever it is, but it's not that. It's coming back to that integrated sense of self, all of the aspects of you, loving all of the aspects of you, giving that to yourself, reconciling with the pieces that you learned were unlovable from some maybe jerk in your life that wasn't able to really see you. And then everything comes together in this beautiful, authentic expression where you're just more in flow. Things are easier. Life is not as challenging when you're able to integrate those pieces.
I mean, you have some of the best analogies, jumping off a plane while building a parachute and shitting rainbows. Like, I'm gonna bring you back on just for your analogies, by the way.
Thank you.
I just picture somebody getting pushed off the spirits pushing you off a plane, and then you having like a puzzle piece of like, here's your parachute before you hit the floor, and you like kill yourself. Figure out who you are.
Well, it's like that's the business owner analogy. You have to jump out of that plane. It's super scary. You don't know if you're going to be okay, and you will have to really build it on the way down. Um, yeah, and within spirituality, there's that crossover between religion. And so there's that iffy line of, are we working towards integrating ourselves and loving ourselves, or are we punishing ourselves to become this perfect something that's worthy of love? So it's something just to be really aware of. I see that a lot in the realm of spirituality. And, I just tell people all the time that come into our spaces from other places, what was it that attracted you to that other place? And they're like, well, they seemed like they had all this stuff together and they were, appearing to be so spiritual, and they put on this big front of like all of this, enlightened, la la la. And I'm like, that's great. What did you learn? And they're like, well, I learned that they had all of the answers and that I needed to rely on that person for those answers. I'm like, yeah, it's not it. It's not it. The answers are within you. You just need the tools to be able to access those answers. And I tell my students all the time, I am just a guide so that you can learn how to do that. I'm not the keeper of all of the answers. And my perspective might be different than yours, and that's great. They're both correct. You're allowed to have different perspectives.
Yeah.
And then they're like, wait, what do you mean?
Wait, I look within myself for the answers. It's funny
Like,
because
what is this trash?
yeah, like it's true though. Like I chased so much love and validation in my life. And then when I started working on myself and just being who I am and the authentic self, and it's like, oh, people who speak my language will be attracted to me and will come to me and who love me in that regard. You don't have to go outside and seek higher powers or do this for all the answers.
Yeah. And it's wild working with people that have climbed the corporate ladder and they have all of the things and they look the part and they have all this money and the success. And then they sit down in front of me and they're like, I am empty on the inside. I don't know who I am. I don't have any hobbies. I hate everything. I thought that I wanted this and was supposed to want this, and none of this brought me any joy. What do I do?
Yeah,
I'm like, all
yeah.
right, let's start.
That's what
Let's
happened to me. And then I
get
just
to
like, you know
work.
what? I'm gonna blow it all up and say F it and just like go into the fire, literally.
That's it. That's it sometimes. Sometimes you have to get to where you think you want to be in order to figure out that's not it and that you are using somebody else's roadmap. And that's how you know that you're in somebody else's energy, because you get to this goal that you thought you wanted and it's just not it. And you're like, okay, well, what else? Because see, there's two options there, right? It's either you just stay and you're miserable, or what else?
Yeah.
Let's explore. Let's try something else. Let's burn it
Go on
down.
an adventure, right?
Burn
You
it
only
down.
live once.
Burn it down.
I second that. Burn it all, blow it up,
Burn
just
it
say
down. Start over. Yeah.
ah, that makes me happy. I like that we're both smiling for this burn it down. Of course we are. We're just like, yeah, yeah, blow it all up and walk away.
Burn it down. Start over. Um, it's really where you'll begin to start to give yourself permission to re-find that joy.
To find who you are, right? To
Mhm.
find back that inner child that was got lost in the process of everything else.
Yeah. You have to be in that playfulness of it. It's not that serious. You're not here to be miserable and to suffer and to just hyper focus on this one thing and fulfill this role that's so empty. It's not
Yeah.
about that. It's what in your life makes your life have purpose. And that's not a career. It's not just a career. It can be a part of it, but it's not a career. That is a capitalist society lie. It's not
I
the
love
number in your bank account. It's not your career. It's not your nice car. You might like a car that might bring joy to your life. It might make you feel fulfilled to take care of your baby. But aside from that, what else? Are there relationships? Are there other hobbies? Do you really enjoy being in nature? What are those pieces that bring that fulfillment into your life?
it. Yeah.
It's not going to be
Yeah.
just a career. Throw
It's
that
beautiful.
off of the cliff. Throw that
Blow
emotion
it all up.
cliff. Blow it up.
Me and Melanie are here to help in case you want to blow it up, but that's not a factual thing, okay? But literally, I mean, yeah, that was beautiful. Now let's do a takeaway now. If you have one message that you will send to the audience that's listening first time and they really want to like say blow it all up or take a chance or take it, what would be that message to the audience to take away?
Yep. There is never a wrong time to find your path, to start over, to decide that you want to try something new, to identify in a different way, to like something else in your world, to evolve in your identity. And there are people that come to me in this process that are very young, and there are people that I've spoken to that are nearing the end of their lives that blow everything up and start over, where they finally discover this core piece of themselves and they're terrified to take that step towards the thing that's going to bring them joy. Do it. Do
Do
it.
it.
I know it's scary. I know it's terrifying. I know there's uncertainty there. I know that at our core as human beings, we want that stability. We want things to stay the same. In your current comfort zone, you're not going to find the fulfillment and the joy and the growth that you desperately want. Only in that willingness to be a little uncomfortable for a little while, or a lot of uncomfortable for a lot of a while, are you going to really find that. And it's not anybody else's decision to make. It's your decision to choose that you and your joy are worth it.
That was beautiful. I like that. I like that. And how do they find you? What's your handles?
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram at _awakened.spirit. I'm also on YouTube at awakened.spirit. I have a personal website where you can get booked for one-on-one sessions, readings, healings, coaching, counseling, melaniesherie.com. I also have the Intuitive Development Academy Awakening Sanctuary, and that is awakeningsanctuary.com.
Perfect. And I will include that in the description and so that the audience can see that. But I appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and my flies.
Thanks, Melanie. All right, done.